Hello, everyone. It's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is your look at the astrology for almost a December, January 6th through 12th, 2025. So, yes, we are in a new year. How's it going for you? If you are watching live, as always, do say hello. It's always fun to see where people are watching from. And for those that don't know who I am Katie Sweetman. I am located presently in the rolling hills, the snowy rolling hills of central Maryland. We are getting a bit of a snowstorm here in my neck of the woods, and maybe even in your neck of the woods in the United States. I realize we are an international audience, and some of you are my Tuesday club because it actually is Tuesday as I'm doing this. So as always, say hello. How is 2025 for you? We had a pretty big astrological aspect last week. This was an opposition between Mars and Pluto. It's definitely one to watch. It's a bit of an intense energy. So how did you feel it? This opposition was on the 3rd of January, and it is the second of 3 oppositions that take us into April. And certainly this is something that really put us perhaps subtly into the energies of Pluto. Is subtle. Put us in the energies of Pluto, which is now in Aquarius. So one of the things I've been talking about for this coming year is that it's a bit of an uncommon year because we have outer planets changing signs, and in particular we have Neptune, Uranus, and Saturn changing signs in 2025. Of course, Jupiter also changes signs, which it does every year. We also have the nodes changing signs, which happens this week. These are some of your marquee events for the astrology of 2025, which I spoke about in my 3-hour webinar. Client was like, your masterpiece. I know. It was definitely a lot to share because it's not just uncommon that we have outer planets change signs within a few months of each other. I like really, short of going through like a couple hours of research, which to be fair, it's the beginning of the year. I got other things to do. But I couldn't really find anything, at least within the last 100 years, that had sort of a similar, like, boom, boom, boom with the outer planets. So definitely this is something that is uncommon, and it means that the hands on the great cosmic clock are changing hours this year. What will this mean for you? Of course, you can still get my 3-hour webinar. It's on my website, empoweringastrology.com, the astrology of 2025. You can watch the introduction, or you can go to my show notes. It also has the link. So as I was saying in the introduction for tonight, the lunar nodes do change signs this week. And I want to kind of like back up for a second because when you talk about the new year, a lot of different astrologers will talk about it differently. Of course, we all have different prisms and different ways of looking at things. And I know there's like, okay, which sign's going to be the most luckiest in love, and which sign's going to be the happiness? And the reality is, I don't know. And I'm not just saying that because I'm an astrologer, but because there's astrology at the level of the personality. And of course, you are all different people. You're going to have your own lives. It's not just down to your sun sign. You have to take the whole into account. But we need to understand that while most of us come to astrology from more of the personality level of things, there's nothing wrong with that. Some of the things that I do here is I talk about astrology in a more broader sense of things. And that astrology is about time. You hear me say this all over again. And even you hear me say every week, the astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. Don't forget about you. So if astrology is time, the energy of time, and how we live time, then the question is for you, how are you going to live time? How are you going to live the time of this year, 2025? That part is you. I know that definitely things have been a bit crazy the past few years, but it's really to be more participatory, I hope, with how we live time and do understand from a much larger perspective, your life is a time. May it be long. It is a time that you live, you color, you experience, you have highs and lows. like we all do because we're human beings, but what do you do with those highs and lows? A little bit more of a philosophical point I wanted to make, but like I said, we've got the hands on the clock that are changing hours this year, one of which is focusing on the nodes. So I know for a lot of you, the lunar nodes are a new subject. Like, what are the lunar nodes? And we need to know a couple of important things. Number one, the lunar nodes are not physical bodies. I can't look up into the sky and see the lunar nodes. These are 2 points in the sky that make eclipses happen. So they're mathematical points. They are where the moon intersects with the ecliptic as it goes around the sun, not the sun, so it goes around the earth. And it's important to know where these 2 points are because they make eclipses happen. If you've been around the block a few times, certainly if you've been around the block a few times here, you may have heard me speak in the last year and a half that we've had eclipses in Aries and Libra. That's beginning to shift because we had our first eclipse in Pisces, September 17th. We will have an eclipse in Virgo, March 14th of this year, another eclipse in Pisces and Virgo in September of 2025. So the eclipses are now moving into 2 different signs, and that happens because a new or full moon will line up or be quite close to these 2 points in the sky, the lunar nodes. And these 2 points, of course, there's the astronomical definition of these 2 points, but they act as like an arc of evolution and change and transformation. From 2023, the summer, no, I shouldn't say summer because I know some of you in the Southern Hemisphere, since July of 2023, the nodes have been in Aries and Libra. So with the South node in Libra, the South is kind of like the past, it's memory, it's instinct, it's something that we're working through. There's a little bit of a general idea in astrology, although I don't 100% agree, that we leave the South node behind. You know, South node bad, North node good. I think it's way more nuanced and way more complicated than that. But there is this arc that we've been living through since 2023 where the North node is in Aries, because Aries is the sign that's opposite Libra. Both Libra and Aries are the relational axis. Aries is the I want, I need, I'm going to go out and get it. And then we have Libra, which is a very important sign. Of course, all signs are important, but this sign helps us to negotiate, to compromise, to see things from the point of view of other people. It can't be so Aries, it can't be so self-motivated, self-reliant that we forget about other people. We forget to negotiate, we forget to compromise. And so this is why I think it's a little bit more nuanced and complicated when the nodes are in 2 different signs. They're always going to be opposite one another, because I don't think it's been like just go towards Aries since the last 18 months. I think Aries as an archetype has been quite present in the collective over the last 18 months. We have seen Aries war. We've seen aggression out. Mind you, that's just one side of the Aries archetype. Positive Aries is, I know who I am. I stand on my own 2 feet. I take care of myself in healthy ways. And so we need that sense of individuality and I. But again, the other side of the sky is Libra. 2 cardinal signs. They line up the 4 directions, or 2 of the 4 directions. And with Libra, we have a chance to really find the balance with other people, to learn to negotiate and compromise, as I said a few moments ago. So with the nodes changing signs, it's kind of a vibe shift. It's sort of this arc of evolution that's been pointing towards Aries and Libra now will, on January 11th, later this week, Saturday, will now start to point towards Pisces and Virgo. Interestingly, we've got a lot of things going on that part of the sky already. We have, if you've probably been around the block a few times here, we've had Saturn in Pisces since March of 2023. So already we have Saturn in that part of the sky. Saturn is different than the nodes, obviously, or not obviously, but they sort of work within the same wheelhouse. Saturn is lessons. It's the lessons of life. You're like, I don't want lessons, Katie, but I'm so sorry. That's what happens. There's things we need to learn, the things that we need to work on. And Saturn says it's time to do this work, to learn these things. And so Saturn is, having been in Pisces since March of 2023, we've had to learn some lessons, but we've also had to grow up. So Saturn also talks about the time it takes to become something. With Saturn and Pisces, we've needed to learn about compassion, empathy, release. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. Aries is the first. So when we get to Pisces, we've reached the end of a cycle, whether that cycle is a breath, whether that cycle is a day, whether that cycle is a year, or even a lifetime. There's a lot of symbology in Pisces. Certainly there's a lot of symbology in all of the zodiac signs, but there's this sense of liminality with Pisces, which is interesting because Saturn is about building and constructing. It's about matter in the material world. It's bones, it's teeth in traditional astrology. But in Pisces, what are we building? It's not physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's deeper understanding. And sometimes the hardest lesson, Saturn, is to have peace, is to have forgiveness, is to have compassion. I know we're all human beings. It's not always going to be so easy, but that's sort of where this major hand on the astrology clock has been pointed since March of 2023. I said earlier that the nodes are sort of in the same wheelhouse, so to speak, as Saturn. Saturn talks about time and how things unfold and how things build and how we grow up to become. And the nodes talk about time, but with more of a sense of typically immediacy, the time of our life. There is this sort of dance that goes on between Saturn and the nodes. The nodes are connected to the moon. The moon has roughly a 29-day cycle. Saturn takes 29 years to go through the zodiac. So they sort of work at two different time scales. And for me as an astrologer, and even some of you are my clients who are watching, when I sit down to look at your chart, where is Saturn right now? Where was Saturn when you were born? Where is Saturn right now? Where are the eclipses right now? Meaning, where are the nodes right now? So if you are a Virgo or Pisces, or you are a Gemini, or what's opposite of Virgo, life's gonna start to get more dynamic because the eclipses make things happen. If Saturn sort of marks the major chapters and milestones of our life, then the eclipses are sort of the plot getting perhaps a little bit interesting. Like, I don't want that kid. I'm so sorry. So if looking where you've had the eclipses of Aries and Libra, that will begin to shift. And now it will be Virgo Pisces. If Pisces is the end of the zodiac, Virgo almost stands about the middle of the zodiac. I actually have my nodes in Virgo Pisces, although it's reversed. The North Node will be in Pisces, my North Node's in Virgo, but I can share this from my point of view. Both Pisces and Virgo are two of the helping and healing signs. If you have these two signs very prominent in your astrology, of course, there's probably other things. Typically, there is a deep instinct to help and to heal, to be of service. Whether you are in a healing profession, whether you are in a service profession, or whether that's sort of makes up part of your personality. So for me, with the South Node in Pisces, there's that instinct to do Pisces. Typically, the South Node, there's sort of this instinct to do something. Now, collectively speaking, we're going to have it opposite. We're going to have the instinct to do Virgo. Virgo is to organize, to put things in order. It's to have a sense of ritual and craft and practice. It's very analytical. It's very tangible, but still also a sign of service, wanting to help and wanting to heal. But it's an earth sign, so it does it physically. Pisces, on the other hand, with the North Node in Pisces, we are typically reaching towards the North Node. Whether that means that we need to bring that energy more into our life, we need to work collectively and personally through the archetype of Pisces. But like I said, because I have the nodes, although reversed, this is how I typically see Virgo Pisces, especially with the nodes are there. It can't be so rational and analytical and real world that we lose the magic. It can't be so magical that we lose the practical. This is why I think with the nodes, it's a little bit too simple to say go to the North Node. I think we really are, over the next 18 months, trying to find the balance between the two. How do we open to the magic of Pisces without losing our anchor in Virgo? How do we help? How do we heal? How do we be of service to other people? How do we open up our vision, Pisces, to something greater than this physical world? Virgo Pisces. How do we heal physically, emotionally, and spiritually? Virgo Pisces. So that's the dance, and there is a lot of magic in Pisces, but of course, there's duality with each of the zodiac signs. The duality of Pisces is the highest of the high of Pisces is like spiritual visions, unconditional love, saint-like behavior. I know that's pretty high. We're human beings. We're definitely in Virgo land. We're human beings. So we're not all going to become magically better people by the end of this transit, but it does hold a higher bar for us. But then there's the other side of Pisces. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what the meaning and purpose of my life is. Why am I here? It can get into that deep existential questioning, and for some, even like that deep existential suffering. But that's not the totality of Pisces. That's just one facet of Pisces. And so we need to make sure that we, again, have our feet really anchored on the ground so that we can make that inner look, that inner search. And so how do we take care of our spirits? How do we take care of our souls over the next 18 months? These are questions that, of course, don't have easy answers. And I would say on some level that Pisces is a sign that doesn't have concrete answers. Pisces, by its nature, because it's a water sign, it's the last water sign, it's the last sign of the zodiac, it exists outside of this physical world. Maybe over the next 18 months, we need to meditate more, dream more. It will be interesting to see what is it like with the eclipse in Virgo Pisces with Saturn also in Pisces. Mind you, Saturn does go into Aries, if just for a few months, from May 24th, 2025 until September 1st of 2025. But the eclipses in September of 2025 will have Saturn back into Pisces. So what that says to us is that if Saturn is milestones and sort of the chapter heads of our life and the lessons that we need to learn in order to grow up and to become, the eclipses are activating Saturn. It's going to be an interesting year. Like I said, I've got my nodes in Virgo Pisces as well. It's reversed. And that's why I am very practical minded with a lot of the woo-woo stuff. Sometimes people knock me for being very Neptunian, which is really interesting, but I have Neptune rising. What can I say? But I do have Saturn in Virgo, so I have to really work to embody the Saturn grounding, the practice, the commitment, the follow through. But that's just a personal share. So yeah, how will you live time? How will you open up more to the archetype of Pisces and take whatever you know from pop astrology and just throw it in the garbage bin, because probably that's not Pisces. But Pisces is this sign that helps us to open up, to release, to let go, to have peace. And that can only happen within. I know that sounds very esoteric and even spiritual, but that's what Pisces is. So if we have hands on the clock pointing new hours, it's a time shift. Different areas of your life will be activated for you to discover, to grow, and to evolve. So this week we have the nodes going into Pisces and Virgo, and this is in advance of our first eclipse in Virgo. This will be in March 14th of 2025, so we've got time. But it is one of the things to watch in the astrology of 2025. The other things that we have this week is Mars is now back in Cancer. So Mars will be in Cancer until April 18th of 2025. And that's a bit of a long time. Typically, Mars spends 5 weeks in a sign. But because of the retrograde, Mars is currently retrograde right now. Like, just look up in the sky and you'll see Mars very bright because Mars is retrograde. Mars typically spends, again, 5 weeks in a sign, but it is spending a longer time. My gosh, I think it's like 5 months, 6 months between Leo and Cancer. So Mars went into Leo, back on November 3rd, and it turned retrograde on December 6th. It returns to Cancer, where it was from September 4th, I believe, to November 3rd, and then it will revisit Cancer until April 18th when it goes back into Leo. So while, this is the thing, what's Mars? Mars is the desire, the drive, and the motivation, symbolically speaking. We all need Mars. Without Mars, we don't get out of bed. Without Mars, we don't have motivation. We don't know what our desires are. So with Mars retrograde, it doesn't negate taking action or knowing what our desires are. It means that we need to be more conscientious. We can't do Mars on an instinctual level. We need to be very thoughtful, very mindful, not demure. So we need to use that Mars in a way that we are very present and conscientious with. So Mars in Leo, Mars was in a fire sign. Leo is the sign of the sun. It's very creative. It's very motivated to create, to share, to express. Mars is back in Cancer, which traditionally speaking, Mars is not at home in Cancer, but that's just because I think it's the sign of its fall, because it's opposite its detriment, which is Capricorn. It means that Mars has to work in a way that's counter to its nature. Mars is typically, just as an archetype, very self-motivated, very much the I. But in Cancer, it can't be self-motivated. It needs to think of other people. It needs to have a sense of community and home and family and kinship and connection, a sense of past and memory. And so that's why Mars is in its fall in Cancer, just because it needs to be in a place where it needs to sort of sacrifice its wants and its needs for the greater good. In this case, the greater good of its kinship or its family or its sense of home. Mars in Cancer, typically, it's very emotional. It sort of feels these deeper emotions that touches back on memory in the past and family, and it even gets into these questions about: am I loved? Am I safe? Do I have everything that I need? So Mars has a strong desire to create material stability and emotional stability and security when it's in Cancer. I say material stability because this is a little bit of a technical point. Mars picks up on Cancer, but the moon is exalted also in Taurus. That gives us a sense of understanding the deeper motivations of a sign. That's a side note. So while Mars is in Cancer, it's pulling away from Pluto. We had that second opposition to Pluto just this past week on the 3rd of January. It was pretty an intense energy. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, this is Mars has gone back into Cancer. It's at the same degree as the aspect of, I think it was November 3rd. We had the Mars-Pluto opposition in Capricorn in Cancer. So there's sort of a tie to that time. When Pluto is opposite a planet, that planet needs to reform and transform. So we are reforming and transforming how we use our Mars. Maybe you're navigating themes around power and control, power plays, maybe power within your own life, or being able to stand on your own 2 feet, to know what you want, to be in your desires. But that's part of this bigger transformation that we are doing into, I would even say, is going into June as well. The other thing is that Mercury goes into Capricorn this week. It goes into Capricorn. I didn't write it down. Shoot. The 8th. It goes into Capricorn the 8th, which is Wednesday. And I wanted to mention that because it has been 9 weeks of Mercury in Sagittarius. And we are now wrapping that time up because Mercury had our retrograde end of November, beginning of December. Mercury in Capricorn, this is why I wanted to mention some things about Mars retrograde. Mercury in Capricorn wants to take action. It wants to move forward because it's in the sign of the sun. It doesn't mean that with Mars retrograde we can't take action or move forward. We have to just do it again very conscientiously. Mercury in Capricorn needs to be the master of its choices. Remember, Mercury is the ruler of both Gemini and Virgo. It needs to be very sharp, very clear. It can be very analytical, sometimes a little too analytical. It can be very smart, but it needs to have the wisdom and knowledge that it's making the right choices. It also needs to have the authority in what it says, what it does. For example, with Mercury in Capricorn, it squares the nodes because the nodes up until the 11th are still in Aries and Libra. And I've just noticed when a planet makes an aspect to the lunar nodes, even a square, there is a ripple of eclipse energy, and it may mean that there's some pivotal choices that we're making this week. And these are choices that even could ripple into events of late March because we have that next solar eclipse on March 29th. Also, before I forget, and I said this last week with the Capricorn new moon, now that we are in a Capricorn lunar month, we are in the midpoint of the eclipses. So we are halfway between the solar eclipse of October 2nd, the solar eclipse to come on March 29th of 2025. I've just noticed this over and over again that you typically see big world events during this time. I mean, people stepping down in power, people stepping up in power, because these are the things that typically happen around the midpoint of the eclipses. But that's the external world. Pay attention to what's going on in your life because it is becoming or sort of bringing forward or even bringing to fruition the solar eclipse that was in October 2nd and giving us a little bit of a preview of the solar eclipse to come and on March 29th of 2025. So that is your look at the, I need to stop hitting this. That is your look at the astrology of, gosh, I almost said December, just January 6th through 12th, 2025. Let's look through each of the 12 zodiac signs. As always, listen for your sun and your rising. I realize not everybody knows the rising signs. Do what you can. The rising sign is the perspective of from the perspective of the self. The rising sign gives you more of a fuller picture, but look at both. So let's start with Aries. Aries, so Mars is your planet, and Mars just got off that really intense opposition to Pluto this past week. So just a little check-in, how are you doing? Because there's a lot of evolutionary force as you go into the new year to make some sort of change. And this is going to be specific to your own life, and only you know. And it's to see how you come back to that point when you have the final opposition to Pluto on April 26th of 2025. So with Mars back into Cancer as of today, January 6th, this means that you are going back to a space that's about home and family, roots, foundation, and memories. And you were, Mars, because Mars represents you, you were in this space from September 4th until November 3rd. So this might be a review or a revisit of experiences and events from that time. From a very surface level, this is a time to put your energy towards the home, towards the family, towards getting your needs met, putting down roots and feeling more anchored and stable in life. Cancer is a sign that feeds and nourishes you. So it sort of begs the question, Aries, how are you being fed and how are you being nourished? I just want to sort of put, because I was talking about the nodes in the introduction, we'll have one more eclipse in Aries. This will be March 29th of 2025, so in 3 months. And I wanted to put that on your radar because we are 3 months before the eclipse. We're also 3 months after the eclipse of October 2nd. So there may be some pivotal things happening right now. It could be about career. It could be about your living situation. It could be about relationships. It's for you to see. It could be new beginnings for you to see how this is showing up in your own life. That said, the nodes are shifting this week, which means the eclipses will leave Aries and Libra, even though there's one more eclipse in Aries, and start to go into Pisces and Virgo. These two signs are about health, wellness, healing your physical world and also your spiritual world. Saturn has been in Pisces since March of 2023, so the eclipses will start to sort of energize this energy even more. You are at the end of a great cycle, Aries. This in 2025, you are stepping forward into a new space, but at the same time, you are leaving behind an old chapter, an old life. These eclipses will definitely point more towards the story, but for some, Aries, this is about really focusing on your physical health and wellness. And this is just something to keep in mind. We'll see. But see how this week and next week, especially with the Cancer full moon, sort of echoes some of these themes that I have told you about. Taurus. So Venus is your planet, and Venus is now in Pisces, the sign of his exaltation. But Pisces is also something called your 11th sign, which means Venus is starting to come to the end of your personal calendar. I need to change this so I stop hitting it. So with Venus coming to the end of your personal calendar, it's time to look ahead. It's time to dream. It's time to vision. It's time to think about the world, because this is more of a space that's about community and friends, for example. Venus also maybe is making you feel more open, more sensitive, wanting to connect with people who are like-minded or to get involved with social issues or social causes. That said, you just had the Mars-Pluto opposition. Mars does rule relationships for you, so I'm just saying that in case there's sort of these reverberations that are happening in relationships for you. There's some demand for some sort of transformation and evolution in your life, especially with relationships. With Mars back in Cancer, Mars is going into something called your third sign, voice, communication, how you think and listen and learn. It may be a busy January, February, and March. This is a time for you to go back to something. It could be about education related. It could be about travel related. It could be neighborhood related. It could be sibling related. But Mars typically pushes buttons, and it is pulling the energy of relationship over to your third. So maybe you're having a lot of deep conversations with somebody, but maybe these are very necessary conversations. With the lunar nodes changing signs this week, this is sort of bringing you into a larger chapter that did begin in 2024, where it is about the future, your friends, your community, opening up to new people in your life, but also needing to get very clear about who you are, to prioritize your talents, your gifts, your abilities, and to be more creative in your life. Gemini, so Mercury is your planet, and Mercury come the 8th, so Wednesday, is finally out of Sagittarius. I say finally because it has been 9 weeks of Mercury in your relationship sign. It has been to some degree about other people since November. Other people means you need to negotiate, you need to compromise, you're navigating interpersonal issues. It's been about the major relationships in your life or been about some aspect of socialization and connection. Mercury going into Capricorn on the 8th, it turns the sort of for the next 3 weeks, it's about intimacy, vulnerability, trust, power, and control. And maybe this is building off of sort of the relational themes that have been present over the last 9 weeks. This continues to be a big time in your life, Gemini. You continue to have Saturn at the very top of your chart, which is about your career, is about the role that you play in the world. It's a title after your name. It is like, what do you want to be when you grow up, Gemini? And I wanted to say that because with the lunar nodes going into Pisces and Virgo starting on the 11th, where they will be for the next year and a half, it means that career is going to be one of the focal points for you in 2025, in addition to the fact that Saturn has been there since 2023. But Saturn has been building and reconstructing your professional life, pushing you into higher roles of leadership, for example, or really marking major milestones in your professional life. But the eclipses are going to be more these activators. new jobs, new directions, new positions, it's for you to see how this is relevant in your life. And so again, with the nodes changing signs, it's just to begin to pay attention to what are your goals, what are your ambitions, what are you reaching for, and how maybe the eclipses will solidify the work that Saturn has been doing since March of 2023. Cancer. So the moon is your planet this week. It is going from Aries all the way to, goodness, Cancer. Is that right? Wait, I have it written down. Give me 2 seconds. Sorry. It's going from Aries to you, Cancer. So when the moon is in Aries as you start the week, it's about your career. It's about your public life. It's about ambitions. It's about really stepping into a role of leadership and responsibility. And by the middle of the week, you're moving into a space that's about friends and community. It's about looking towards the world, looking outside of yourself. Then by the end of the week, the weekend, the moon will take you into what's called your 12th. The 12th is for you to recharge, regenerate, come to the end of this cycle. Even though you're ruled by the moon, your life sort of moves at a very different pace, much more quickly than some of the other signs. Then by the end of the week, it comes back to you, which I'm sure when we start looking at next week, we will have the full moon in Cancer next week. So the spotlight will be on you next week, Cancer. That said, Mars changing signs. Speaking of the spotlight being on you, Mars has gone back to Cancer. Cancer is you, or it's your rising sign. Mars in your sign gives you power, it gives you force, it gives you motivation. Typically when Mars is in our sign, we're not compromising. It's really about what we want, our desires, and this desire to stand on our own 2 feet and go after what we want. Mars is retrograde. That doesn't negate what I just said. It just means that you can't, do it instinctively. Like Mars typically rushes forward without thinking. But Mars retrograde is saying, reconnect to your desires. Stand on your own 2 feet. Go after what you want. Fight for what you want in a good way, of course. And to really be conscientious about that in your life. Mars is a career planet for you. It just made that opposition to Pluto. So it's just a little bit of a check in Cancer to see what's going on in your professional life. Is there a need to make a transformation? Are you navigating something, for example, and maybe even deeper emotions that have been coming up? Then there's the lunar nodes going into Pisces and Virgo. So Pisces and Virgo form what's called your 9th and your 3rd signs. These 2 places in anybody's astrology chart, the 9th and the 3rd, for some, it's about education. It is about either it's taking classes, going to school, or it's going to university or to college, getting a higher degree. That's the 9th versus the 3rd. It's also about the need to explore, the need to travel, the need to find answers. Keep in mind that Saturn has been in this space since March of 2023, your 9th, Pisces. What do you believe in? What do you stand for? What do you think is true? Has this time, Cancer, has this time been about the need to find the answers to deeper philosophical questions, to bring meaning and purpose in your life? Or has it been about education? You're working on a degree. Has it been about travel? You need to explore. You need to see the world. Has it been all of the above? Saturn is about making something real and concrete. Sometimes what's concrete is the degree, or it's the actual physicality of traveling to another place. The eclipses, which will come in 2025, particularly March of 2025 and September of 2025, will make this real. Whether you get the degree, whether you travel, whether there's things that are trying to open up your world and make it bigger. And for some Cancers, this is about taking your ideas, your words, the things that you want to share and putting it out there into the world, because the 9th, by and large, is a public space. That said, yeah, that's it. So yeah, Mars back in Cancer, I already said it. So there you go, Cancer. Leo. Leo, so the sun is your planet. The sun is still in Capricorn. Capricorn is your sixth sign. So this is the season. Certainly, it's the lunar month for you to focus on your health, your wellness, your physical life, your schedule, how you show up on a day-to-day level, putting things in order, and even cleaning things out. Sounds like the time of year for it. And that's what typically happens around this time of year. That said, we had that pretty intense opposition between Mars and Pluto on the 3rd, so last week. But I wanted to point that out because it's sort of reverberating through the collective at the moment. This is sort of your first activator of Pluto in Aquarius, one of your first activators of Pluto in Aquarius, where it has gone into your relationship sign in November of 2024, which is activating this bigger time of transformation of relationships in your life. So it's just to sort of sit and be present with what is going on in your life, the things that are happening in relationship, even if it's a desire to make changes in relationship. That said, Mars has gone back into Cancer. Cancer is something called your 12th sign. There's a couple of ways in which we could look at Mars's time in Cancer, and this will take you into April. It is a need to rest. It's not going to be the case for every Leo, of course, but there's either a need to rest, to recuperate, to regain your energy, because Mars is really about physical energy, physical desire, motivation. For some Leos, this is a time for you to take your energy and put it towards a space that, by and large, is very spiritual. The 12th in Cancer is your 12th sign, is a space for you to open up what's beyond this world, to search for inner truth, inner meaning. And for some Leos, it's a very spiritual time. It's for you to see how this is relevant to your own life. But then again, Mars was here from September 4th until November 3rd. So this is a review or a reconnection to that time. The lunar node is going to Pisces and Virgo. Keep in mind that Pisces and Virgo, depending on how you look at it, are either money signs for you. So it continues to put an emphasis on money, income, material stability, and security in your life. We all need to have some sort of material resource at our hands, whether it's just make sure we have a roof over our head, to earn a living. The 8th, which is where Saturn is right now, and we will have eclipses in the 8th, particularly in September, but we will also have an eclipse in Virgo in March, which is your sign of money and income, material stability, and security. So these are themes that are beginning to become more and more active. Saturn in the 8th, for some it has been about money, for others it's been a lot of emotional and psychic heavy lifting since March of 2023. The 8th is where we go to face ourselves. It's like, on one hand, it is about money and income. It's about inheritances. It's also about emotional inheritances, our psychology, and the deepest parts of ourselves. So Saturn has been sort of giving you a little bit of an emotional workout for the last almost 2 years. It is for you to survey everything that I've said and to sort of see where it shows up into your life, because with the nodes there, the node is now pointing you towards the 8th. It's pointing you towards the work that you've been doing with Saturn in the 8th. So these nodes will to make this time concrete, whether it's to learn something, to transform, to make an inner transformation. But again, it's very subjective to your own life. Virgo, so Mercury is your planet. It's finally getting out of Sagittarius this week, and on the 8th it's going into Capricorn. So it's a little bit of a breath of fresh air for you, Virgo. It has been for the last 9 weeks really about family. A need to go back and to review, to go back to something from the past. It could have been with mom and dad. It could be with family members, or it could be about this sort of inner sense of home and family. Maybe with Mercury just about to leave Sagittarius, it begs the question, what have you learned? Mercury does make a square to Neptune before it leaves the sign, and maybe it's a call for compassion, forgiveness, peace, or letting go. Not always so easy. Mercury going into Capricorn. Capricorn is a very different sign. It's earth. You're an earth sign. You're either Virgo, Virgo rising. It's a need to make something concrete, to make a commitment, to take all the work that perhaps you've been working on over the last 9 weeks and to make it real in some way. Capricorn is also something called your fifth sign. So for the next 2 to 3 weeks, just under 3 weeks, you need to prioritize taking care of yourself, passion, joy, creativity, the things that light you up and give you joy. Not always what we think about when we think about Capricorn, but it is to be sort of make time for the things that you love, to be an authority of your talents and gifts and abilities, and even to take your talents, gifts, and abilities seriously. Mercury, which is you, symbolically does make a square to the lunar nodes on the 8th. So this could be a week of pivot points, pivotal choices, or new ideas or perspectives that may send you in a different direction. Speaking of the nodes, they changed signs this week. That's kind of a big deal. It's one of those, I think, number 5 in the top 5 things for this year. It doesn't mean that it's not important. It's just sort of eclipsed a little bit by the other things that are happening in 2025. But that said, the eclipses changing signs are very important for you to take awareness of, because the eclipses will be in Virgo and Pisces, and you're a Virgo or Virgo rising. The North Node is going into Pisces. It's about relationships. It continues to be about relationships. And I know that that means different things to different people, because for some people it is a serious relationship, romantic partnership, moving in with somebody, getting married. But that's, of course, not the case for everybody. But we're humans. We need relationships in some form, in some form of connection. And so it is for you to see how this is relevant in your own life, because with the nodes going there, it's really sort of activating a lot of the work around relationship and connection and partnership that has been in place since March of 2023. We are 3 months out from a lunar eclipse in Virgo. Hey, you're Virgo, Virgo rising. So it says that March is going to be a big month for you. It's a time of action, moving forward, new beginnings. Also, you'll have eclipses in Pisces in September of 2025. It'll be about relationships then, but that's a bigger conversation for another time. Mars is going, or has gone back into Cancer. Cancer is something called your 11th sign. So you're sort of revisiting these bigger themes about friends, community, who are my friends, what's my role in the world, and also, the kind of future that you want to create. And that's sort of, you need that review of your vision. And when Mars goes forward on February 23rd, that's when you start to sort of move forward a little bit so that you can make this vision more concrete. Libra. So Venus is your planet. Venus is in Pisces right now, the sign of its exaltation. Venus has pulled you over, not just towards Pisces, but it's pulled you towards something called your 6th sign. So, on a very sort of surface nuts and bolts level, this is a time for you to take health and wellness seriously. Certainly, it is the time of year for it. This will take you into the next 4 weeks. And so whether you feel that you need to sort of put things in order, clean things out, make some positive changes for the new year, of course, whatever is relevant for your own life. But the thing is, Libra, is that Saturn has been in this space since March of 2023. It's a larger period in your life where health and wellness has taken priority. If it's not health and wellness or diet and nutrition related, it could be service, meaning you are wanting to be of service more, you want to help people. For some Libras, it's not that. It's more about work and really showing up and sort of dedication and commitment to your day-to-day life. See how that's relevant, of course, to your own life. But the eclipses will breathe life into Saturn's time in your 6th. So if there's things that you know that you need to do, and only you know your life, it is to take, sort of go into the new year making those measured choices and actions. I can't remember the date of the Venus-Saturn conjunction. It's probably going to be in a couple of weeks, but and sort of the run up to the Venus-Saturn conjunction later this month, probably you need to, sort of really rethink about your commitments. What are you showing up for? What do you want to really have as part of your life in 2025 and to prioritize? Because then Saturn's going to say, okay, now it's time to make this real. We do, speaking of the Pisces and Virgo, we do have the eclipses, which I probably just mentioned. We've got Venus there, we've got Saturn there, we've got Neptune there, and then the eclipses are going to go here. So this just, again, is for you to see what is the existing story and how that's beginning to take a little bit more shape and form as you go into 2025 around health, around wellness, around taking care of your body, but also I would say from a very holistic point of view, because with the South Node in the 12th, it is also to look at health and wellness from a body, mind, and soul perspective. Then there's Mars back in Cancer as of today, January 6th. So Mars is a relationship planet for you. It did make that pretty intense opposition a few days ago to Pluto. It is to see what is the story around relationship and connection and how that's rippling even into this week. Mars back into Cancer means that Mars has gone into, gosh, I gotta do some quick astrology math, has gone back into your 11th sign. Is that correct? That's not correct. It's gone back into your 10th sign. Sorry. It's gone back into your 10th sign of career. It says that going even into April 18th, you need to focus either on your professional life, the title after your name, going after your ambitions, reevaluating your ambitions in the new year, really needing to push yourself forward or push up towards something. But it also says a lot of action is happening in that space. And if it's not your career, it's also about your responsibilities and your duties. And with all that energy in your 6, I think this is a good underline to say that this is a time for you to really take duty and responsibility seriously. Scorpio. So Mars is your planet, and Mars just made this powerhouse opposition to Pluto on January 3rd, so just a few days ago. So it's just to see how that's rippling in your life. Mars was in Leo. Leo is about career for you, your responsibilities, the role that you play in the world, how people see you. And then Pluto, as you know, it will be there for the next 20 years. But you already know this. It'll be, it's talking about family and home. If it's not literally about family and home, it's about really starting to shift the psychic foundation that you stand upon. It's a little bit of a bigger story. But Mars has gone back into Cancer, where it was from September 4th until November 3rd. Cancer is something called your 9th sign. So this is a review, a revisit of a very philosophical place. Like, what do you believe in? What do you stand for? What's your mission? What's your purpose? What lights you up? What motivates you? You are Mars. Mars is your ruling planet. And so you need to sort of either fight for what you believe in or stand up for what you believe in a good way, to really have a strong sense of motivation about the way that you see things, to share things positively, to express something, to publish something, to speak something. That could be where Mars is really showing up. Then we have the lunar nodes changing signs. They're going to go into Pisces and Virgo. Now, not the same dramatics as some of the other signs of the zodiac. This is getting into what's called the 5th and the 11th. So the 5th is an extension of you. It's what lights you up. It gives you joy. It gives you passion. It gives you creativity. Saturn has been there since March of 2023. So this has been a time in your life, Scorpio, for you to take yourself and to take your talent seriously. And maybe with Mars back into Cancer and sort of going back to this, what are my talents? What are my gifts? How am I taking this seriously? Do I need to reevaluate my core philosophy? Do I need to get back in touch with the mission and purpose of why I do what I do? There will be eclipses in this space going into later this year, but also the other side of the zodiac, which is your 11th, friends, community, your social circle, but also issues around service, helping other people, social issues, and social causes. There will be activity in this space throughout 2025, especially in the eclipses of March. And so it's just to begin to take note of what is the role of friends and community. Who are you? What is the role that you play? What is sort of the philosophy that drives a lot of your interactions in the world? With these nodes there, it's going to start to be a lot of activity about your friends and community, as I just said a few moments ago. And so it's just to start to take note, because it's going to start to, as you get closer to March, a lot of things are going to start to happen in that space in advance of the final Mars-Pluto opposition. And this will be in April. So March, April, 2 big months for you, Scorpio. Sagittarius, lots going on in your astrology, Sagittarius. You hear me say it every week, Jupiter is your planet, so it continues to put the focus on relationships. This is all relationships, lowercase r relationships, and uppercase, capitalize R relationships. Of course, this is going to be different for each person. You all have your own lives. But this also reminds you that you need to have connection. You need to have socialization. You need to really think more conscientiously about how you connect with other people. That said, Saturn continues to be in your sign of home and family roots and foundation, where it will be for the better part until February 2026. This is a time for Sag to continue to build its foundation. And for some Sag, that is family related, it's parents, it's creating a family, it's starting a family, or it's to find home within, to feel like you can put down roots within yourself, for example. The eclipses will start to move in this space. We already had an eclipse on September 17th. We'll have eclipses here also in September 2025. And I'm talking about the eclipses because now, at least starting on January 11th, the nodes are going to go into Virgo, Pisces. Virgo is your career sign, and Pisces is your sign of home and family. 2025 is going to be a dynamic time for you. I said this last year, how the second half of 2024 would be very different. And maybe it is, maybe it wasn't. But the idea, at least on paper, is that it's a very different time that then in 2025 starts to sort of get more and more dynamic, more and more interesting. It's about relationships, about home, it's about career. So really, you had Mercury in your sign for 9 weeks. It's a lot of reflection, reevaluating, seeing things from different perspectives. And with Mercury going into Capricorn on the 8th, it's a time to actually make some concrete decisions, to really show up, to say yes to the things that you need to say yes to say no to things that you say no to invest your time and energy wisely. That said, Mars has gone back into Cancer. Cancer is your 8th sign, so it's going to be sort of picking into deeper emotional and psychological themes even into April, I know. But this sort of is a revisit of some of the inner work you did from September 4th until November 3rd. So it's just to be present with some of the feelings that are coming up, and maybe this is just to bear witness to yourself, because certainly as the astrology plays upon the four corners of your life, it's going to bring up a lot of things that perhaps need to be released. Capricorn, so Saturn is your planet. It's still in Pisces. So we had that Capricorn new moon last week, and that says for Capricorn, this is your reset. It's about this sort of new page in your personal astrology, especially if you are a Capricorn rising. The energy of that new moon, even though that new moon was last week, it continues to point towards something called your third. It's about how you speak, how you listen, how you show up, the choices that you make. And, you're Capricorn, it's sort of asking more of you, or more to sort of communicate differently, or even to be more compassionate, empathic with your communication. Next week, there will be a full moon in Cancer. Cancer is relationships, and I wanted to say that because there's just been a lot of heated astrology in the last few days, And with that full moon, the full moon's going to also be a little bit heated, if I'm being honest, because Mars is now back in Cancer, your relationship sign. Each Capricorn is different. You're living different lives, but it's to take awareness of like who's in your life, who are your capital R relationships, who are your lowercase r relationships, because with Mars there, it's about other people, and it's about other people even into April. It's a time to revisit and to reevaluate something that really was a part of the story from September 4th until November 3rd, because that's when Mars was in Cancer last. Mars is still opposite Pluto, even though the opposition to Pluto was on the 3rd. So it's really bringing something to the forefront right now. It's just to be aware of it. And that's the thing. The thing with Pluto is that it always holds the mirror to us. And so if something's happening, like how do we use the Pluto energy to look at ourselves, to look within, so that we can sort of see that, make sure that we're not operating in a blind spot about ourselves. But of course, this is going to be relevant in whatever way it's relevant to you, Capricorn. The lunar nodes changing signs will activate the energies of Saturn. The North Node is going into Pisces. Saturn has been there again since March of 2023. So something about voice, communication, how you think and listen and learn. I will say with the South Node going into the 9th, typically when the South Node's in the 9th, we need to be very careful that we're not, how do I put this? 99% of the time, Capricorn, you are right. You're smart. But it's just that 1% that gets you every time. And I think with these eclipses throughout 2025, make sure, and there goes back to that blind spot, that you're not completely, turning away from that 1%, because that's the 1% to pay attention to. So the North Node, and now in your 3rd, especially with Saturn there, is like gain new perspective, see things from a different point of view, be curious, don't sort of open things up, make your world bigger. So there you go. Aquarius. So Saturn is your planet. It's still in Pisces. Pisces is your second sign of money, income, material stability, and security. So at this point, almost 2 years into Saturn's time in Pisces, what is your money story? For some Aquariuses, this has been a little bit of a kicking of the butt, because you've needed to really clean up finances, really look at spending, create a budget, get very clear about what you want to invest your time and money in and what you don't want to invest your time and money in. For some Aquariuses, this has been more philosophical. I want to make sure that how I'm earning a living, or what I'm spending my money on, or the resources that I gather are in alignment with my values, because Pisces is typically a very value conscious sign. I don't mean physical value, although this is your money sign, more of a spiritual value, for example. With the Capricorn new moon last week, it brought you to the end of your personal calendar, because when you have the Aquarius new moon at the beginning of February, it is, or the end of January, I can't remember which one it is the restart for your personal year. How are you doing, Aquarius? Because that Mars-Aquarius, that Mars-Pluto opposition was right along your astrology. So, keep in mind, I said this last week, Pluto is now in Aquarius. Pluto is now on the front doorstep of your life. And it's saying for you, whether you are an Aquarius or Aquarius rising, that you are now in a new time in your life. Changes need to be made. And so these changes, maybe you became aware of something last week, maybe this is rippling out into this week, but use it as an opportunity, because something needs to change. Mars left your relationship sign. It's now in your 6th sign, health, wellness, how you take care of your body. Mars is typically has a lot of physical energy when it's in this space. It needs to go for a walk. It needs to go for a run. It needs to go to the gym. It needs to get some fresh air. See, of course, what's relevant to your life. But, this time being this time of year, how do you reevaluate that part of your life? Your sense of commitment, your sense of showing up, your sense of health and wellness. And I would even say, especially with the Capricorn sun right now, that health and wellness is also body, mind, and soul. We will have eclipses in 2025 in Pisces and Virgo because the lunar nodes are moving into Pisces and Virgo. Now, Pisces is a money sign. That's where I find Saturn, which represents you, and also your eighth. The eighth is money, finance, it's assets, it's benefits, it's legacies, it's debt. It's really for you to see how this is relevant in your life. And it's also a deep psychological space. So it's bringing up these bigger themes about value and worth, assets. Do I have enough? Am I safe? Am I secure? Getting my material life in order, getting my psychological life in order. And that's for you to see how these, especially as we get closer and closer to March, how these themes start to come more and more into your life. And finally, Pisces. Pisces, Saturn on the brain. Jupiter is your planet. So I've been saying this for the past probably couple of months right now. You've just got things going on the four corners of your astrology. Saturn has been in Pisces since March of 2023. The bar has been set higher for you for almost 2 years. That will begin to change in the middle of 2025, but in the meantime, we can't sleep on Saturn because Saturn is trying to build you up. It's trying to have you grow and to become something. And maybe at this point of the story, what have you grown up into the past couple of years? Where has Saturn really pushed you to step into greater roles of responsibility? There's Saturn, there's Jupiter. Jupiter and Saturn still are in a square with one another. The last square will be in June of 2025. And Jupiter is pulling your energy down to your sign of home and family roots foundation. It's about your living situation. It's about putting down roots, focusing on your foundation, really navigating themes around family, for example. The eclipses in 2025 are going to be in Virgo and Pisces. Hey, you're Pisces or Pisces rising. And we had that first eclipse in Pisces back on September 17th. These eclipses, in a way, are giving life to this larger framework of time that you've been in. Typically, Saturn marks the milestones. It marks the chapter heads of our life. The eclipses are sort of these plot points. And so it says that 2025 is going to be a dynamic time for you, one of new beginnings, one around relationship and connection, and perhaps new relationships coming into your life, needing to redefine relationships, redefine your living situation. And then I will also mention that Mercury changes signs this week because Mercury is a relationship planet for you. Mercury is your career planet for you, and it's spent a long time in your career sign. And whether that's been a November, December that's been about your professional life, or whether it's been a November, December that has sort of tapped more into this time about title, responsibility, your worldly life, the role that you want to play. It's just like I said, things are hitting on the four corners of your life, and maybe it is to get clearer about the type of relationships and connections that you want in your life. Of course, you have to see how this is relevant to you, Pisces. Mercury goes into Capricorn this week on the 8th, and because Mercury has gone to Capricorn, it begins to solidify some things I think that were a little unclear or a little not formed, throughout November and December. But hey, it's January. It's the time for things to become real. It's the time for us to really get clear about the year ahead. And here you are, Pisces. So that is your look at the astrology of this week. To keep wanting to say December, January 6th through 12th, 2025. As always, I good to see familiar faces. I know some of you are my clients, which means you can book a consultation with me. We can go over the astrology of 2025 and how you may choose to live time, or how time will, of course, show up in your life. I love working with people because I love to show them this space in which their life unfolds, which is their astrology chart. Go to my website, empoweringastrology.com. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube. And of course, you can get my 3-hour webinar on the astrology of 2025. So I appreciate you all. Thank you for being a part of my life, my work. And I look forward to having, more things, more hopefully things to share and things to discover with you all into 2025. So until then, I will see you all next week. Bye-bye.